What's up, people? I'm Shaggy the Opinionated Hippie, and today I'm going to be ranking the guitar solos on Frank Zappa's Joe's Ménage release. I'm going to rank the solos. There are 4 of them on this album, 1 through 4, 4 to 1. I'll post it at the end, so you don't got to keep notes if you're into that thing. Then I will show you where this album ranks among the other 41 that I've already done, right? This is part 42 of my ranking the solos. Where is that list? I think it's part 42. Yeah. So anyways, Joe's Ménage was an interesting little release. Sort of a hardcore Zappa fan sent Gail a bunch of cassette tapes of Zappa shows. This was one of them. Well, I think he actually sent it to Zappa, like way back in the 70s. Zappa did something with it. Then later it was found, but not the originals, but like a copy of the original or something. It's a convoluted story, right? But anyways, what we get is like a 45-minute excerpt from a November 1st, 1975 show. Generally, the solos from this tour, especially like the early part of the tour, are I enjoy them. I really enjoy the sort of indulgent any downers from early in the tour. There was some really good, sort of very aggressive, kind of metalish, very arena rock style playing. This 45 minutes is not that. I wanted to rank them all at number 1 and just give them a tie because picking between them was just kind of pointless. But then I was like, giving them all 1 makes it think like, oh, these are fantastic. So then I was just going to rank them all at number 4, which just seemed mean and unfair. So I decided to actually rank them and try to find a reason to defend my rankings. So there's 4 of them. I don't think they're any good. I mean, they're not bad, but they're definitely nothing special. The one of them is kind of special, and I'll get to the reason why first. But it's not that big of a deal. But anyways, yeah, that's it. All right, not thrilled about this one. But I'm doing all the albums. As long as there's a solo on it, as Jazz from Hell video proved from a couple of days ago, I will review it. Number 4, Chunga's Revenge. Right? 4. That's crazy. How is Chunga's Revenge last? Because, ladies and gentlemen, this is what Frank says after we get a pretty good Nappy solo, a pretty good Andre Lewis solo. He's like, ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to play a rhythm guitar solo. So he plays a rhythm guitar solo. Din, 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 din. Yeah. Plays a rhythm guitar solo. First time I heard it, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Second time I heard it, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, but kind of got bored of it really quickly. Now I'm just like, I'd rather hear you play a regular solo, sir. Can you do that? Because after he plays his rhythm guitar solo for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, about 2 minutes long, he manages to stretch out a rhythm guitar solo for 2 minutes. Bozio gets a solo, and then we're on to Zoodalures. Maybe it's worth listening to because it's a rhythm guitar solo, but that's it. Doesn't do anything for me. That's number 4. Number 3 is Zoodalures, which is usually would normally be number 1 in 75 or 76. But 2 things. The actual head of Zoodalures, I think, is kind of interesting. Again, we're in that very skeletal, bare bones version from Fall 75. Almost immediately when we enter the solo territory, that must have been when the taper had to flip his tape, or the tape flipped happen because we get a fade out, and then we come back in. We're right in the middle of the guitar solo. We get, less than 2 minutes of a guitar solo. Pretty interesting because I like the Zoodalure stuff. It's like very clean slate, not much is happening. Frank's just playing. But then almost immediately, once any amount of steam gets going, we got the band introductions and we're closing out the main set. So the disappointment level of a fade out, jump cut into like the middle of a solo, the ending of a solo, almost like as soon as you're like, oh, right, it's over. It's just the levels of disappointment. What we have in that like little minute plus of Zoodaluresness is pretty interesting, but disappointment sets in almost immediately. And so I have to put this at number 3. Number 2, Carolina Hardcore Ecstasy, mainly because I like that dun-dun-dun vamp. I think Frank rides it pretty well. He's got a couple nice little melodic pockets where he's doing some interesting things throughout the solo. I do like just the general space overall of the Carolina Hardcore Ecstasy vamp. I think a lot of times Frank is not really pushing the boundaries as much, or maybe he can't because the vamp is kind of limited. I do like the overall feel of the solo. I like the vibe it gets. I like the song. But as far as like listening to the solo and going, oh, that's really interesting. Oh, man, you got to check this out. I don't think there's really any of those moments. It's not enjoyable, not enjoyable, right? But it's not like a great solo by any stretch of the imagination. It's kind of short as far as Carolinas go. Serves its purpose. Frank sounds like Frank. Yeah. And number one, again, this is like Whipping Post recently was at the top of a list, which a song I generally don't like. This usually is not at the top of a list, but number one is Illinois Enema Bandit, just because it seems to be very bluesy, very arena rocky. Like there's like three different distinct sections where Frank is just taking a single idea and just like riffing on that, like for like 20, 30 seconds, just kind of the same idea, maybe slight little tweaks in it, but he's just like riding a hard, energetic groove. You know, it's a very dramatic, kind of forceful, kind of bluesy solo. Nothing really special other than the fact that I rank it number one because I really like the intro. Frank is just kind of playing this like jumps into it and kind of just plays the same like motif over and over. Then he goes off, and then he gets into this other motif that he repeats, and he goes off and gets in this other little motif, and then he goes off. By the time we really start to like get some steam going, we're calling it quits when the solo's over. But I think it is the longest solo on here by maybe 20 or 30 seconds. I think it is maybe Frank doesn't quite sound like Frank. He maybe sounds more like a 70s hard rock arena rocker, like a generic arena rocker. Like he doesn't sound like Richie Blackmore. He doesn't sound like Tommy Bolin. He doesn't sound like other hard rockers of the year. He doesn't sound like Buck Dharma, but he just sounds like a hard rocker. Like he's in an arena. He's like he's banging his head and the crowd's going crazy. It has like a large audience type vibe to it. As 75 and 76 move towards that more arena rock sound. But yeah, I think it's the most interesting solo on here in an early version of Illinois Enema Bandit, in which the introduction to the song is way, way, way too long. But yeah, that's it. Illinois Enema Bandit. That's my number one. But that's what all four of them look like. I don't think any of them are like must-hears. I think overall it's an interesting release. It's kind of a weak release. I mean, this stuff, everything that's on this release is available on better sounding releases, better played releases, in almost the exact same sequence. FC Oz for one, FC Ozzy, the more recent Zagreb Ljubljana release had more interesting stuff than this. Pretty much from the same era. It's a really, really interesting release. I'm trying to look up the Zagreb Ljubljana stuff. Where do I have that? But yeah, Zagreb Ljubljana, right? That's from like the same 75, but it's slightly more interesting stuff. But yeah, man, it's just kind of a weak release. So where would I rank it? There. It's not all the way at the bottom, only because those two Roxy albums at the very bottom of this list are repeating stuff from what's on number 39, the complete Roxy performances. So it's right at number 40. I just think the Roxy performances have a handful of solos that are more interesting. I don't really think anything on here is that compelling. I don't know why it was. It was released because somebody sent him a tape, and I like the fact that we're going to honor it and all that stuff. And I don't know. It's an odd release. These are odd solos. It's a head scratcher. It was cheap, and you could get all 5 Joe's releases for like $25 at one point, which was a bargain, maybe $30. Very interesting release series. The early pre-Mother stuff was by far the most fascinating stuff. There was like a Grand Wazoo rehearsal tape, which was kind of a head scratcher. A 75 rehearsal tape with a band that didn't actually make the Fall 75 tour was more interesting than this. I haven't reviewed that one yet. It's not on this list. But anyways, Joe's Ménage, number 40, towards the back, towards the bottom. All right, that's it. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this tape. Let me know why these solos are much, much, much better than I say they are. They're still Frank solos, right? So it's still Frank's guitar playing again. But I'm ranking Frank and comparing Frank to Frank. And when I compare Frank to Frank, this falls to the bottom. Because that's the way it is, people. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. Bruce Hornsby / Chevy Chase. All right, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. I think I made a 14-minute video on Jazz from Hell, which only has one solo. 4 solos, We're in it under 10 minutes, people. That's it. I'm done before we hit the 10-minute mark. Peace. Talk to you later.